We turn now to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Doyle, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this morning I read in the newspaper that AT&T recently notified many of its special access customers that it will eliminate certain long-term discount price plans, effectively increasing rates by as much as 24%. Competitive carriers argue that they have no alternatives to gain last-mile access to business customers and must simply accept the higher prices. And, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to place a copy of that article that appeared in the Wall Street Journal this morning and a copy of the ex parte filing that several companies made to the FCC in regard to those rate hikes. Thank you. Let me ask Mr. Feld and Mr. Iannuzzi, how can AT&T institute up to 24% price increases if these markets are competitive? And do you find fault in claims by some that competition today eliminates the need for a regulatory backstop, particularly in light of AT&T's action to effectively raise special access prices?
Sure. Only a dominant market player can go and raise prices ad hoc and to those level of magnitude. It was quite shocking to see that take place, where those network elements are very vital to run the connectivity within our network. So if there was true ability to shop and pick, then they would be foreclosing those sales and those revenue streams. And AT&T's in the business to make profit, and to then just raise prices. If the market was working and it's an equal service, you would go pick the next lowest provider, provided they had equivalent capabilities.
I would add that we often have a confusion between the underlying infrastructure and the things that ride on top of the underlying infrastructure. And we look at the number of wireless carriers, the number of carriers that offer service through that underlying infrastructure, and looking at just the surface of that, we say, wow, there's a lot of competition. But when you actually get below the surface to the infrastructure on which all of that competition rides, you have still the same kind of network problems, still the same kind of infrastructure monopolies that you have to worry about. So I think that what we've seen in special access, and this is not a new problem, this has been going on for many years, is that there was a lot of hope and anticipation when we set up criteria about how we were going to tell whether there was competition. Some of that did not happen, but also the criteria were frankly too optimistic and did not take into account the difference between people offering retail service or people offering different kinds of commercial service and the critical infrastructure that you have to get to in order to reach the customers to offer that service.
Thank you. Mr. Ciccone, would you like to respond?
Yes, sir. First of all, let be clear, when we're talking about the special access facilities mentioned here, we're not talking about services that are broadband. The FCC has not classed these services as broadband. I think one of the reasons, Mr. Doyle, that you read the Wall Street Journal article that we're not offering service contracts out 5 and 7 years is because we plan, as part of the IP transition, the reason we're here today, to be replacing these old facilities with modern broadband fiber-based facilities, including Ethernet. So naturally, we don't want to be offering long-term contracts on a facility if we're going to be replacing it with an alternative facility. There's a proceeding underway on special access currently at the FCC that's designed to gather facts on what alternative facilities are available for other providers like Telnet to use. We think that the data the FCC collects from all providers, including cable, is going to show that there are ample alternative facilities there. And one of the alternatives, by the way, is for a CLEC to build its own facilities. We're right now have a project underway, and hopefully by within 2 years, we'll have run fiber to 1 million businesses in our 22-state footprint. And I think any other carrier out there is free to do the same
Mr.
thing.
Ciccone, listen, I understand that you're transitioning and that it probably makes sense that you're not going to do 7-year contracts. I think the concern is not so much that you're discontinuing the long-term contracts, but that you're raising the rates 20. You're not passing down the discounts, and if this were truly a competitive market, I don't know how you could get away with doing that.
Mr. Doyle, I'm going to
I
have to
have
go
10
back and
seconds.
check on the rates, but I don't think we've raised prices. I think we've eliminated some rate plans,
Well,
but I don't think prices have gone up.
I'd like to see that.